So some of you in the room may know some of these products. So the first product is Selectric typewriter. So who knows what a Selectric typewriter is? No? Okay. So you all know IBM has invented few products in the past 100 years. So by the way, this year IBM is turning 100 years. June 17th is our 100-year anniversary. So we're actually very proud of the fact that a IT technology company has made it to 100 years. So I'm going to share with you some of the innovations and inventions that we've had in the past 100 years. And that's why we believe that we can actually build a smarter planet going forward in the next 100 years. So you all know about the typewriter and the personal computer, right? So these are key inventions that IBM produced to help you, help me, help all of us. Can you imagine living today's lives without a computer? It's hard to imagine. But guess what else IBM invented? And this, I didn't even know, and I've been working at IBM 6.5 years, and I just realized this myself. We invented the barcode. Can you imagine a retailer running their operation without the aid of barcode? It would be a very, very difficult task. I would not want to be the cashier at a retail store that doesn't use barcode. Magnetic stripe. Credit cards, debit cards, all use magnetic stripe. Now, I know some of those have converted over to RFID, and by the way, IBM is the inventor of RFID as well, the smart chips. But magnetic stripe is widely used for access to buildings, for credit cards, for ID cards, you name it. It was one of the first technology to allow identification of a person, things or accounts or goods. Magnetic disk drive. Now I know we've replaced these magnetic drives with optical drives, but without magnetic drives, I don't think the computer market would have taken off as it did. You needed to store large amounts of data, and you wanted to store it in a very small place. A magnetic drive back 20, 30 years ago allowed us to do that. Excimer laser. IBM invented laser surgery for the eye. This was a surprise to me. I know we're into computers, we build things, software, hardware, but lasers? For eye surgery? Sabre. Do you know what Sabre is? Sabre is an airline reservation system that operates in real time in order to make sure no two passenger is looking to get the same seat on a flight. Without Sabre, our ability to travel, reserve planes, cars would be extremely difficult. So most people don't know this, but IBM developed Sabre with the industry, I believe, around 30 years ago. And I think that's a key innovation that we contributed to the society. Deep Thunder. Deep Thunder is micro-geo predictive tool in predicting the weather. So who used Deep Thunder? Atlanta Olympic Committee in 1996. They wanted to make sure they had clear visibility of what the weather conditions are in each of the sporting events so that they can make better decisions about whether to delay the games, move the games, whatever they had to do in order to keep the Olympics going. And I know here you guys have a big event coming up in 2022, and I think something like Deep Thunder could potentially help you. Now let's bring you up to the modern times. Predictive crime fighting. So in New York City, where there's a fair amount of crime still, what the police is doing is they're not only going after an incident. So they have video cameras, they have monitoring systems all through the city, And in the past, they would see a crime happen, and then they would react and send the police. Now what they do is based on historical patterns, based on information from sensors, based on information from video cameras, they deploy police forces to prevent crime from happening. So they know when there's 20 kids hanging out in a street corner, that's usually not a good sign. So then they would deploy police to hopefully prevent a crime from happening. And that's a very simple example I give you, but they're using deep, deep analytics to do everything they can to optimize the resources that they have to prevent the crime from ever happening. I think that's pretty cool. I don't know if you all know this, but this is the type of work that IBM has been doing over the past 20 years. And then Watson. How many of you know who Watson is, or Walt Watson is? Okay. No. So if you live in the US, there's a show called Jeopardy. I don't know if you have it here. And Watson competed in Jeopardy with the 2 best human competitors ever. And I think the score was something like $90,000 to $20,000. So Watson clearly won the match. But it's not the fact that Watson just won the match, because you might think, oh, it's a big computer, you put a lot of data, and of course it's going to figure out. Watson is much smarter than that. Watson actually thinks and learns as the game goes on. So Watson has learned to become more like you and I. So when Watson has a big lead and he has an answer, he has a question that he's not quite sure about, so his confidence level is low, then he's going to bet a very small amount, just as you and I would. If the category becomes more familiar to Watson, then the confidence level builds, he'll start risking more money, just like you and I would do. So if you know IBM as a computer company or hardware company or just a services company, I hope you have a different perspective of what IBM is and who we are. So now, it's the decade of smart, and we like to highlight smarter cities. And let me take you into a little bit of what smarter cities are. So what we do is actually fairly straightforward initially. We collect data from the different sensors, and we put it in a single place where you can have a complete view of that data. And it's data from sensors, it's data from, it could be video, it could be RFID, it could be barcode. Any sensor that's out there, we can collect the data, we can format it, we can structure it, and we can put it in a place where you have access to it. So there's information that's operational or transactional. There's also insights that we can provide, things like having more granular information, car by car data, or a timestamp to be able to know when a car has gone into a city. And be able to provide the city operations folks a complete visibility and complete control. Because once you have complete view and complete control, then you could make better decisions to enable, for example, more effective traffic flow. So we have some examples on traffic, some examples on energy, water management, crime management, and I'm going to go through a little bit of those later on. But the idea is to collect these key bits of data from the physical world and be able to display it, be able to analyze it, and be able to share that data with the operations folks. And this is just a screenshot of what you might see. So there's a citizen view of how the city is operating. There's water, transportation, incident management, and then there's an executive dashboard where city operations people can sit and monitor exactly what's happening in their city. So what is this Intelligent City Operations Center? It's the ability to create reports of incidents. It's ability to provide situational awareness. it's the ability to have real-time collaboration. So you can actually not only view the data yourself, but you may want to share certain bits of the data with your citizens. If there's truly an emergency, then you would want your residents to know what the issues are and take actions. So the ability to collaborate, work in harmony with the citizens and the City Operations Center exists today. And be able to manage your resources better, right? Everyone has limited resources, whether it's a repair crew or the police force or the emergency medical personnel. You want to allocate and use those resources as effectively as possible. And all of this can be cloud enabled so that you don't have to deal with buying the server, maintaining it, having a big IT team. You can actually get it as a service from the cloud. So public safety, I think this is one of the key areas for cities and countries that are looking to have large public events. So, using video surveillance, we're able to not only identify what's happening, but be able to track some entities if necessary, be able to play back, have a simple UI, the ability to set up by the user so that you can have different view of what's happening in and around your city. Traffic information hub, the ability to capture traffic data and be able to affect behaviors, in this example, based on the amount of toll that you charge. So I'll share some specific examples of different cities, how we've done this. But the ability to utilize the camera data, the sensor data, to make sure that there's a smoother flowing traffic, I think that's one of the biggest benefits of such a system.